This is I Don't Want to Fit In podcast. I'm Anung, a fellow multi-passionate artist, author, photographer, poet, writer, and everything I feel like doing. Talking about all the ways we can be creative, from hobbies to full-time incomes. Going over tips and tricks, mindsets, and just the joys of putting what we love out into the world. You can follow me on Instagram at I Don't Want to Fit In podcast and Anung V. Reviewing and leaving comments is always a great and free way to support an artist. I love talking about my state. Minnesota is just kind of a fun place that most of the time people call like a flyover area. Like sometimes concerts don't come here, or like big events just don't really happen. So we just make our own. And the biggest one that we have, especially end of summer, end of August, 12 days until Labor Day, is the Minnesota State Fair. And I mean, it is a huge production for us. They have hundreds of food vendors, there's shows, competitions, because there's like it started off agriculturally with what most fairs are for 4-H and like farm people to compete with a lot of their farm animals, projects, but there's also like art and a bunch of other things, but not the important part. And honestly, like Minnesota is we do it big. We have a like over 300 acres. Of course, not all that is for people to go through, of just state fairgrounds. That is there year round. It gets used for other things too, but that is what it is, there the whole time. And it is, I mean, it's got gardens, it's got great architecture, like permanent buildings. They build permanent like bathroom facilities too, so it's not one of those fairs where you have to use a porta potty. Like there's actual sinks, there's actual toilets. Like it's a huge big thing for us here. Even if we don't go every year, everyone knows about the state fair because the way it's set up and how it has to go, because it's the very last thing when it comes to a lot of these 4-H kids and other people for their competitions. It has to be the last thing because the state one. And so we have to have until Labor Day. So kids is literally the last thing you can do, probably with your friends and family, before school starts, because it always starts after Labor Day for us. And the thing is, like, this is huge. Like, we've been doing it for 1851. We've actually had, I can't remember what year it was, like dignitaries from like Morocco come through to see how we do it, because it's so big, it's so famous, so well known. And we do great revenue, like not just for Minnesota, but all the surrounding states. 2018, it generated over $268 million, not just for us, like, because it's in St. Paul. It's actually on the University of Minnesota campus, the St. Paul one, but it's connected back to the Minneapolis ones and everything else. But it's like, I absolutely love going. I try to go almost every year. Every once in a while I'll skip, because there is over 300 food vendors. They have the grandstand, which has a bunch of really good concerts. This year they had Pitbull. Other years they've had Earth, Wind, and Fire. They've had Jason Aldean. So it's a mixture of stuff. We've had comedians come through and everything. So it's not small names. Like some of them are kind of small, like local ones. I'm not saying small like they ain't good. But it's every single night there is a good performances, but there's other stages doing other things with educational as well as entertaining. They have like magic shows for kids. They have rides, like full on rides where like with these big fairs, they travel all around the country, because a lot of fairs try not to do their own stuff at the same time, because they all travel together to each new one. My thing is, like, I've been growing up going to state fair. I still remember always going to get Martha's cookies at the very end. Like that's kind of what everyone does. There are pictures out there of like the end of the night, people leaving, and it is 20-30 people deep each line to get the cookies, because people grab it and then on like the bus ride out, and they realize to eat the cookies enough because they overflow it, so you can't even close the bucket. And so you eat it as you get to the bus, sitting on the bus, and then finish off and everything else. And that's like the cookies you can have for the rest of the freaking week if you have a huge family. I personally always go for corn. Minnesota is very well known for their corn. It is a lot of rivalry between like Iowa and Illinois, but Midwest, all these different states saying they got the best corn. The only time we all go together is when we have another state in another area saying their corn is better. Literally had someone from like South Carolina try to compete with us. And we're like, no, you can just fuck off with that shit, because Minnesota, Midwest areas, we have the best corn. And it's actually, I think that one's run by the university as well. Like, it has to be, it's cash only. They actually have a compost bin there for when you finish eating. I always get one, sometimes two. I always get fries. If I go with certain friends, they always get the cheese curds. There's a different Asian food. Like, every year there's also new food too. So that's kind of the best thing. They have new drinks. Nordic waffles came one year that since then I've always, if I come in the morning, that's my first thing to get. I mean, it's a big thing. It's kind of the last big thing you do. You go once with your family, you go once with your friends. There's a lot of stuff for shopping. I mean, there's a lot of great deals out there to get like farm equipment, mowers, cars, stuff to renovate for your house. There's just so many different options and stuff to do. But the nice thing too is that you don't have to really spend a lot of money to just have entertainment. There's a lot of stuff that you just people watch and go look at for free. And you are allowed to bring coolers in. So if you want to bring food and like water and pop and everything else, you can. And just pick out like the one or two things you want to actually eat there, and everything else just kind of bring your own stuff just to save some money. But some of us go, and I am there for the food. Secondary is rides. Third is entertainment. Always go into the Miracle of Birth building, because they always have like cows being ready, about ready to give birth. And you can watch it live a lot of times. They have they have pigs that give birth there, so you can see all the baby animals, see chicks being hatched and everything else. So it's a lot of different stuff out there. There's different like competitions you go through. They have a lot of stuff for just things for your homes. There's a lot of just shopping stuff too, which I always forget. It's not like shopping like at a mall, but stuff for your house, stuff for the kids. There's always toys everywhere. And I just honestly, you have to figure out who you want to go with. Like, I always go with my family, because then they're the ones I go do like the haunted house with, which is a actual structure that's there year round. To go with the haunted house, because honestly, I'm kind of mean, but I go with one cousin or one of their kids and everything else, because they get so scared and they're pulling on people, me sometimes, screaming, ducking, fucking jumping. I can't get scared because I am laughing so hard. I start coughing, that's hard I'm laughing. I've had one time that I almost peed myself because it was just so hilarious. This most recent one I went in with my one cousin and a different cousin's two oldest kids. And one of them she had me by the death grip. A couple times she was pulling so hard. I'm like, I'm trying to walk, little woman, let's go. And the actors are sitting there kind of like, okay, you get like, she's screaming and pulling me, and it's just, oh, it's so entertaining for me to go. I have to go with certain people like that. But then if I go with my friends, they have to do food. There is no, there's no diet. There is no, I only want one thing. No, we share, so that way everyone gets a taste of everything, but we don't overstuff ourselves. Like, we always get cookies. We always share fries. If we wanted some like stir-fry noodles, donuts. I don't really go for the candy. Like, cookies is kind of, cookie and ice creams are kind of my thing, because I'm more of a salty person when it comes to things. But then you go with a group, you go even one other friend, you share, and you do great. Like, I actually never had cheese curds until recently, because I had a friend who absolutely loves it, and then I would be able to eat a couple. So much better when it's fresh. Just saying. But there's just, honestly, there's so much stuff to do there. It's a huge thing. We have so many people coming from all around the world practically. We have tours. Like, I know different companies who have people come from China, a couple of people who come from like the Philippines and everything else. So they have actual tour guides who can translate in their own language going through. We get a lot of people from South Korea, a lot of people from Europe, definitely from South America, because it's a quick and easy way to get there. Not, I mean, we're at the top of the country and they're the bottom, but still easier to get here than, say, across the ocean. And honestly, the fun is just the people watching. One year, me and my family had a family reunion. We had it up here one time. And we made sure we did it over the state fair time. And we brought them in, and we had them kind of keep your head down, got up a hill, and had them get up and look down the streets. And honestly, you could not see a hole in the whole thing. And they were looking around kind of like, holy shit. I'm like, and turn around. There's another 4 blocks that direction. And just go look to the other direction. There's another one. So they did not see it. I mean, most of them were from Kansas, Illinois. Their fairs were maybe a couple blocks like of ours, and ours is over 300 acres. Like that's a lot. So seeing that, a lot of people don't even realize, because they think of us as Midwest, everything's small. Like the only big thing is Chicago. Twin Cities is actually fairly big. We're still kind of a small big city. We have a lot more green space than most other places do, but we bring in the crowds. We have a big population. We have a lot of diversity. Because we have a lot of people who they have really good Vietnamese food. There's a good Chinese food. There's Hmong vendors, different farms. We have a couple farms that come around from like Iowa and Wisconsin and everything else, because they sell their food. They want to show off what they have, not just in Minnesota. Because I mean, why not? Like I'll get pork from Wisconsin. It's not that far away. That's still local to me, and I still prefer to support local, because that's, I mean, the best stuff there. They don't have to do all these extra things to preserve it and everything else, because it's coming close. So if anyone ever, you want to come into Minnesota, you want to eat yourself sick, you want to try some fun rides, learn something about agriculture, like, come to Minnesota, end of August. It is our hot time. That is technically our dog days of the summer at the very end, which kind of sucks because you go right into school and it's still freaking hot. Some years, yeah, it's not as hot. It's still upper 70s and 80s. Some years, it is like 99 degrees, 100% humidity. But they have plenty of buildings with AC. They have, when it gets that hot, they'll have actual cooling stations. There's free water a lot of different places. So there's not even, like, there's always options to get free stuff to take care of yourself and everything. So you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars. Some people do. It's kind of the fun part about doing the rides and the food and everything else. So if you want to come to Minnesota for something a little different and definitely a variety of stuff, definitely show up for the Minnesota State Fair.